Brothers on Inside.
Another classic weekend update goes into the archives. Thanks for staying up later. I'm Bob Costas. I guess the question, Dennis Miller, is are you the managing editor of that broadcast in the fashion that Rather is at CBS or Brokaw at NBC?
I do have editorial control right up to the point where Lorne has complete control of the show. So, no, I'm not the managing editor. Lorne is.
How much of what's in the weekend update do you write and conceive?
Well, you know, this is my 4th year, and for a while there I was writing a lot of it. And this last year we've started to have brunches on Saturday, because what was happening was I didn't have real trouble churning out material, but it was all in my sort of meter. And over the course of a 10-minute thing, week after week, I think if you write jokes that are exclusively in your own voice, people get sick of it. You know, it becomes metronomic in a way. And, you know, we have great writers like Franken, who writes a little harsher stuff than
Al Franken.
Yeah, and Whitney Brown, who writes, you know, a little more, you know.
Hey, Whitney Brown with the big picture.
Right. He writes very esoteric jokes. And we have other great young writers, and Herb Sargent, who has been writing it from the beginning. So we get together on Saturday morning. I usually get 3 or 4 good things out of that, and it breaks up the delivery. Because when I write Miller jokes, it's sort of like, you know, I put a picture of Judd Nelson up and say, Judd, come back to us, give me a call. Right. You know, and you can only do so many of those, and you start to just look like...
How many of those do you do? Something like a Judd Nelson thing, knowing that it's really going to tickle 10% of the audience, and the other 90% is going to go, what is this?
Well, you know, I don't think you want to write to your basest denominator all the time, because then it just becomes sort of, you know, the jokes are, you can put pictures up of guys and say, doesn't he look like him? And you can only do that so long. And then you have to do a joke that's a little more, has a little more of a left-hand turn in it. It's only for some people, but that's good. I mean, the other people who don't get it, it kind of just goes by. And the 10% who do get it really get it. They think you wrote it for them almost. You know, like it's the cognoscenti theory. They feel like, oh, that one was for me or something.
This isn't fair, but I'll do it anyway. If you had to pick 2 or 3 all-time favorites that aren't just funny, but they typify your sensibility, what would they be?
I don't know. I did a Michael Jackson joke once where they just had the most bizarre picture of him with a chimpanzee where they really look like they were out for the evening together or something, you know, buddies. And I said...
Chimp had his evening costume on.
And I said, just put the picture of him. You take a beach, you don't even have to say anything to some of these pictures. You know, the people start laughing right away because the same odd thing about it is odd to them, and they just look at it for a second, they start to titter, and then all you have to do is, like, uncap the pressure by saying, Mike, come back to us. You know, and everybody says, yeah, that's what I'm thinking, too. Or we found a picture once of a sumo wrestler snow shoveling a lawn up in Minnesota, and it was 4 feet deep snow, and this guy's in one of those big sumo tongs, you know, and he's...
Shirtless, otherwise?
Yeah, just shoveling, and I just put the picture, I was onto this camera, and, you know, you have to look to this one for the pictures, and I just turned, we put the picture up, held it for like 6 seconds, didn't say anything, and then just turned back to the person. And the tension of what are they going to say is the joke at that point. You know, got a big laugh.
I don't want to lead with the gossipy tone, but somebody told me that you and Springsteen are friends.
Oh,
do we have any insight into the boss here?
Well, you know, I've met him a couple times, and he just seems like a sweet man. I'm amazed at how anonymous he can be. I was with some friends one weekend skiing, and he was in the group, and we were in a restaurant, which was like a cafeteria. You walk through with a tray.
Yeah.
I was behind him in this line, and this place was jammed. There were like 500 people in this place, and I only saw 2 people realize it was Bruce Springsteen. That amazed me. It taught me a good lesson about, I think you get noticed when you want to get noticed. You know what I mean? If you put on sort of this, if you put yourself in this anonymous mode, I think you can really hide it.
Was he wearing a hat or something, you know,
I did have a hat, but
it
was obvious to me it was Springsteen. You know, he had a little ski cap on, but, you know, it wasn't like Clark Kent where he puts on the glasses and you can't recognize him. To me, it's obvious it's Springsteen, but he's walking around and he just kind of keeps his eyes down, and he has a good sense of humor about himself. It's funny, I went to dinner with a couple friends one night, and he was there, and it ended up in a paper. And my mother never calls me about anything from Pittsburgh. I mean, I could do Carson for the rest of the time I could do Letterman, I could do Saturday Night Live. My mother called me and said, did you go out with Springsteen? It's the only thing she ever called me about, you know, so amazing how he's our mythic hero right now in America. It's moved beyond musician.
Do you buy this notion of comedians as the rock stars of the late 80s?
No, certainly not. And all you have to do is be with some rock stars to watch yourself get passed by. You know, I was over in London not long ago, and Nelson Mandela they had a birthday party at Wembley for him, and I hosted it for the Fox network. And it was all rock stars and a couple comedians like Robert Townsend and I. And you're just completely anonymous when you're in the wake. You know, you're in the wake of somebody like Sting. That's when you see charisma. You know, this guy, that might be the most charismatic individual I've ever met in show business. It's just kind of a void. You know, they go, yeah, tell us your cute little ideas of a second. I'm going to go watch Sting, do Message in a Bottle. You know, it's like, we might be the rock stars in that, like kids used to form garage bands, they can now grab a mic and jump up on stage. I think to some extent there's such proliferation in comedy, we might be the rock stars in that way. Everybody does it. But as far as a charisma quotient, you're completely dwarfed by a good rock and roller.
We'll continue with Dennis Miller right after this.
These feminine hygiene ads I'm being inundated with. Some pretty fertile women running around out there. These girls have more periods than a Hemingway novel. Their time of the month is the month. Copernicus used these chicks to set up the lunar cycle. You know, men feel left out of that whole gynecological process no matter how hard it is for a woman. Ladies, you have to remember, essentially, men are megalomaniacal in nature. They like to be involved in every single facet of their female's existence, and they feel left out here, cheated, because they don't have a corresponding experience. This is why men like shoe shine so much. It's the closest we come to gynecology. We get to put our feet up on those little fake feet, you know. Which brings to mind a question, do women tip their gynecologists, huh? Well, that looks great, Doc. Here, get yourself a little something, you know. He gives it that one last whack with a buffing ring.
Ritz Bits with the taste of cheddar cheese.
Another breakthrough in snack time technology.
Delicious.
Cheese Ritz Bits and original Ritz Bits. They're both every bit as good as a Ritz.
Fame. You show up on some of the sketches on the show, but mostly what you do is to anchor the weekend update. Is that the way you want it?
Yeah, that's fine with me. It's almost like not that I'm a fan of the role, but it's like a DH or something. I don't view myself as a tremendously gifted actor, and I think it almost is, it demeans acting if you've never done it to say that you're an actor. It seems like everybody says they're an actor to me. Yeah. I've never been in a high school play. I've never been in a college production. I was a comedian, you know, and I got this job, and I love doing those sketches when I get in, but there are guys there who are monsters. Lovitz chews the, you know, scenery up. He's great at it, and Phil is, you know, just Aykroydian in nature. I mean, the ability to immerse himself in all these different parts, I think he's brilliant. Dana's like a rock star, you know, I mean, he has this great, his comedic talent is this ability to formulate these characters that are, you know, that people love, you know, they're great at that. So usually if you look at a sketch, there's in a 6-minute thing, there might be 2 big parts in it. And to be frank, if I'm getting the 2 big parts, one of the 2 big parts, I don't know that I'm serving the show as well as I can. I think I'm a, you know, a support player, and I'm more than happy to show up in those roles. But update's my focus, and I think if I start whining about what I don't have and trying to get into sketches more, I miss the point that I'm there to come in at 12:05 and hit the ball every week, you know, and try to get some laughs and, you know, get that energy going right around the halfway point. And, you know, when you think about it, when I started show business, and I don't want this to sound Pollyanna, it's almost good you can do it in an interview instead of in print because it sometimes looks like, you know, you're being a martyr about it or something. I have so much more than I ever expected. You know, I have a great gig. I have somewhat of a penchant for writing topical jokes. So I get to come on for 10 minutes a week and tell topical jokes to millions of people. It's like an amazing gig for somebody who, of my abilities. So I'm more than happy to do Update, and if I can be in anything else, if I'm a particular type that fits, that's fine. But I don't have this need to be in everything. I don't view myself as a Renaissance man of comedy or anything, you know.
If somebody asked you to describe what your comedic attitude is, would you be able to do it?
Well, I think it's sort of a... I think it would be self-serving of me not to say there's some cynicism there, you know, and if I do have critics, they say some sort of smug, cynical.
Mm-hmm.
I always swore to myself when I got Update that I would at least sit there and look like I presumed I belonged there. And if some people view that as smugness, I guess, you know, you have to pay that price. But if I ever watched anybody there who didn't really succeed, it used to be they had that look about them that they maybe didn't belong there, or they wondered why they were there. And boy, it's like watching The Dating Game when a guy's given a bad answer and you just like, you start to wince. You think, I gotta get out of the room. I feel so bad for this guy. I always said I'm never gonna sit there and be like apologetic about it. At least, if you have to be there, why not look like you think you belong there?
Stone and Playboy have big stories roughly the same time within the past few weeks about comedy in the 80s and, you know, like serious scholarly looks at comedy. And in one of the two, I can't remember which, there was a column, what other comedians talk about when they get together.
Yeah.
And according to them, one of the things they talk about is how come you and Richard Lewis are the only two comedians who can get a little peace by virtue of their work on stage.
A little peace of mind.
No, not a little peace of mind, a little piece of whatever.
Well, I'm happily married, man. You know, I think you look at me and Richard, and you see what the common denominator was there, and we both wear dark suits and grew our hair a little longer.
And have, like, a lot of hair.
Yeah, so that's the only thing that I can say. I haven't talked to Richard about that yet.
You haven't unloaded $250,000 on therapy through the years like Richard has, right?
I've unloaded my fair share, but not $250,000. It wasn't $250,000. It was $246 million, or $246,000. So lay off.
You got to say, in his case, what an investment.
Yeah.
Because you figured, in terms of what he turned it into in his act, it's he's gotten his money back and then some.
Well, you know, my wife and I and Richard and Marie, his lady friend, we go out and. You know, Richard is so socially skilled and so in charge. You know, I'm telling you, when I'm out to dinner with this guy, he knows exactly how to handle himself. He's a brilliant conversationalist. You know, and who isn't neurotic? But Richard certainly isn't, you know, when Richard grabs his hair,
right.
You know, Richard's a brilliant comedian. I mean, I think he's one of the most gifted comedy writers we've ever had in stand-up. I mean, the asides that people miss are more brilliant than most chunks that guys build their whole career around. The guy's flat-out brilliant, and I'm sure everybody has their dark quarters that they don't understand. Who doesn't? But, you know, when I'm with him, I don't feel like I'm with a neurotic cat at all. I feel like this guy has such social skills, and he's such a good friend to people. You know, he just sponsored me for the Friars Club.
For the Friars Club?
I thought that was so touching. He told me he went over there with you once.
He and I went in there.
Is it great?
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. You go over there.
It's like the Roman Senate. I can't wait to go.
You wander through the catacombs of the building, and an unoccupied thing on the third floor will be, you know, the Fred Allen room, or hey, over here in the Ed Sullivan Grotto.
Oh,
and you walk in there, and there's an old guy in a maroon polyester suit chomping on a cigar, going, ugh. I don't know. What are we going to do? You know, it's unbelievable. We walked in there, Richard Lewis and I, and sitting at one table, and they asked us to join the table, were Tommy Lasorda, Irv Kupcinet, Cup Show in Chicago, Henny Youngman, who had the same little piece of an omelet on his chin through the whole lunch, and Leroy Neiman. What kind of a motley collection of characters is this?
I don't know. Guys with things above their lip, I guess. I mean, I want to go because to me it's almost like the passing of the torch. You know, I think these guys are the tale tellers, you know, and I'm fascinated by the older cats. I mean, and sometimes they're gruff. I'm not saying all these guys, it's not across-the-board love fest between the young comedians and the older faction. There are times we don't butt up. I don't like it when they trash us for using language that they didn't. You know, I use, in my act, I use profane language sometimes, and I feel that my act is erudite as some people's. You know, I don't think that alone is enough of a reason to trash a guy's act. I think you have to listen to it. When I hear them say, well, they swear, they say a dirty word, and that's it, I think, well, that's not it. You don't understand it. So it's not an across-the-board love between me and those older guys, but for the most part, you know, I mean, they really, once you get to know them, once you get past that initial gruffness, like an old grandfather has to cuff you around or something, they're brilliant, and they're very supportive, and they want to pass on to you the stories so you can pass them on to the next generation. I mean, that's important to me. I don't take stand-up lightly. I mean, I think it's I'm very proud to be one, and I like to talk to the older guys.
You know, I looked at the list of nominations, the last list of Friars Club
Friars?
nominations.
Are you going to join?
And I'm thinking about it. I'm
We're
thinking
going to
about
have
it.
lunch there. Well, how?
You know, it's an unbelievable experience to sit around there. And
Who's
I
on
noticed
the list?
Brooke Shields has been nominated, and her sponsor is Frank Sinatra. Can you picture? Come on, she's a good kid. Let her.
I'm going to need a second call on that. I mean,
That's right. That's right.
Frank,
Frank isn't good enough. Could we get Uncle Milty to second this nomination? We'll be right back. Well, here we are in midweek. I know you're staying on top of all the breaking stories leading up to Saturday night.
Yeah. I got to get back to my little cave up there and start perusing the USA Today weather map.
You get your stringers and correspondents all over the country. They'll be checking in.
Like Jack Anderson.
Yeah. Dennis Miller. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Join Bob Monday night when his guest will be ex-cop and best-selling author, Joseph Wambaugh.
Start the Fire is a 4-minute history lesson. And in response to piles of mail about the song from both students and teachers, We Didn't Start the Fire has now inspired a unique educational tool. Joel has recorded a special message to be distributed on a promotional cassette to 40,000 junior and senior high school teachers this month. Joel is obviously pleased that the tune is helping kids learn about 20th century history, but as he says in his message to the students, there's really only one way to educate yourself.
A lot of these things I wrote off the top of my head. I didn't pick up a big book and just look through it and write things down. I've been an avid reader of history, and I didn't even graduate high school. I'm pretty much self-taught, but all my learning came from books. And to this day, I've got 4 or 5 books going at the same time. My favorite thing to do, aside from be with my family and go fishing, is to read and to play the piano, too.
Also included in the package is a promotional newspaper-styled pamphlet issued by Columbia Records, which contains brief bits of information on many of the historical figures and events listed in We Didn't Start the Fire. Plus, there's a history lesson plan for teachers structured around the lyrics to the song. In other Billy Joel news, New York real estate mogul Donald Trump, who last month brought the Rolling Stones to the Atlantic City Convention Center next to his Trump Plaza casino, is now reportedly thinking of bringing Joel to the Las Vegas of the East. Trump recently told a New York newspaper that it was, quote, a distinct possibility that Joel would open Trump's new Taj Mahal hotel and casino in Atlantic City later this year. Well, it may take a lot of Trump dollars to convince Billy Joel to play there, though. Joel reportedly told the same New York newspaper, quote, Atlantic City, I'm not ready.
Wait. I knew in town and I'm awfully lonely. I wondered if he wouldn't mind buying me lunch.
Wait, hold on. You can't come. Gregory, this was...
George. It's Michael Dorsey, okay? Your favorite client. How are you? Last time you got me a job, it was a tomato. No. Yeah? No. Swear to God.
Michael.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I begged you to get some therapy.
I know, and you also told me that no one would ever hire me.
You think this is going to make a difference?
I